Hi, welcome back to another episode of Coldstream Rod Shop. I'm Derek Fraser. In this episode, we're going to be working on a 32 Ford Roadster. This is one of the Roadsters, the Roadster bodies that we built. We did 4 of these in the past, and we did a video on how we put them together step by step. This was either the first or the second one that we did. I think it's the second one that we did. The owner has made it into a 32 Ford Highboy. Nice 392 Hemi into it with 6 strong bore carburetors, traditional hot rod, split hairpins, I-beam front axle, quick change rear end, all those really nice things you want in a 32 traditional hot rod. So what it's here for, they want us to put carpet, interior panels, and upholster the seat. So in this episode, we're going to step you through us putting the carpet in, like I said, making the panels, the kick panels, the door panels, and behind the seat, and then upholstering the seat, and then out it goes on the road. Work has now begun on the 32 Roadster interior project. We've taken the seat out. We've started fitting, the camera lady, not me, has actually started fitting the carpet around the tunnel. Started making patterns for that. She's made a cardboard pattern for the firewall, which is going to be carpet as well. It's going to be glued to the firewall. And then what I've started doing, I've started making the kick panels and the back here. So the plan is to put carpet all across the floor and then kind of make a floor mat style piece of carpet that's going to come down here and fit on both sides. In the back here, there'll be a piece of plywood that'll be covered with leather the same way that the interior is. So it's just going to be a relatively straightforward but clean, neat interior on this. So follow along as we put together the 32 Ford Roadster interior. Here we are inching away on the project. Carpet is on the tunnel, the firewall, and underneath. This is the top piece. What the owner wanted us to be able to do is be able to lift up this carpet here to access the master cylinder. So there's a plate here which will go over the top of the master cylinder. This will come down and it'll just tuck underneath the kick panel over here. The seat itself, there's the 2 back holes for the seat right there and there. So there's going to be 2 more holes here that'll hold this in place. And then along the edge here, basically it's finished bound. So we're going to keep on working on this. Oh, the other thing we got to do, there's the gear shifter has to go in. So there's a boot that goes onto it. Have to put the boot here on the emergency brake cable. Then of course, hook up the gas pedal and the high beam lights there too. I'm in the shop now. I'm actually beginning to make these kick panels here and start to do the upholstery onto it. So that's up next. We've been chugging along here, making a bunch of panels for the 32 Roadster project, the upholstery project here. Haven't done a whole lot of video so far, but we've got a few panels done. Thought I'd better stop and actually explain what we're doing. We've done another interior project before. It was a Milkman's 32 3-window coupe, but this is kind of the same kind of interior project. But what I thought I'd do is stop and explain on what we do to make the panels. So essentially, What I do, I start off with a paper pattern for the area in question, get it as close as I can. Then I transfer that paper pattern to a piece of 1/8 or 3mm arborite or MDF, whatever you want to call it, like you see here. Now this pattern, I've cut it to fit exactly the size that I want. So once I've got it exactly the size that I want, get it in place, then we have to decide how we're going to attach it on the inside of the car. I like to use these little Ford clips. We're going to insert a picture of what they are, how you can order them. They're Henry Ford style metal clips. There's plastic ones you can use as well, but I like to use these metal ones because they're reusable. So what you do is once you have the panel in place, you can see here I've got a bunch of holes. But what I do, I put it in place and then I take a 1/8 drill bit and then I'm gonna look on the metal of where I've got an area that I could push stuff through, because sometimes there's areas that have got double metal thicknesses or brackets, so you've got to choose an area that's thin, that this little metal clip will clip through. Once you kind of figure out where they are, use a grease pencil or something to mark them off, position your panel over it, and then what you're going to do is use a 1/8 drill bit, drill through that hole where you think it's going to be, double check it. I mean, if you get off by something, you can move it over a little bit, but put your 1/8 drill bit holes where those holes are going to be. And then you're going to open those holes up to just over 1/4 of an inch. What you should do is start with a 1/4 of an inch hole first, and then press this piece in and see how it needs to go in with resistance, but not so much resistance that when you push it in, you actually break the wood. So I think I'm about a 1/64 of an inch or so up from 1/4 of an inch. I'm not, whatever that works out to. But just do a trial piece and make sure that it pushes in with resistance, but it also won't pop out on you, kind of thing. So once you've got those done, then you're going to go back in the shop, and then the distance from that 1/8 hole that you made to the center of this 1/2 inch hole it's 5/8 of an inch from the center line to the center line. So what that 1/2 inch hole there allows you to do is there's 5/8 of an inch offset. Like when you push this in, I don't want to push it all the way in, but it basically clips in the hole there, so that on the opposite side, this pin here will be where that hole is. So here's an example of a finished panel. I did a time-lapse video of me putting this on. So there's the finished panel. And once the panel's finished, then you just insert those pins. You've got to apply with a little bit of pressure, but basically push them in, take a pair of pliers, shove them in so that this hole here is where your 1/8 hole is. So once you got those in place, then you get a panel basically like this one that you can then just pop on. So I'm going to keep on working on this. The camera lady is going to go back in the shop and she's going to make up these leather panels here. And then I'm going to upholster this panel. I'll put the clips in, and then what we'll do is I'll show you putting this panel in the car. So there's one more important thing that I forgot to mention in the last spiel, is that when I said you make the panel the exact size that you want, you do that so that you can drill your holes. But then after you've done it, you've actually got to take the panel back in the shop and take 1/8 of an inch off all the way around here to basically allow for the upholstery to roll over the edge. Because with the foam and with the upholstery onto it, it's going to take about 1/8 of an inch all the way around here, no matter how much you squish it. So again, 1/8 of an inch all the way around here, wherever the upholstery goes. Just trim it off. You can use a planer, you can use a hand plane. I guess if you really wanted to use a jigsaw and then a file or something, but ultimately got to take 1/8 of an inch off all the way around to reduce the size of this panel. Here's the panel. Made the panel up just like I did the other one. I've got the clips in place and my holes are drilled just like I described a few minutes ago. Just getting ready to pop this in place. If all goes well, I should be able to just put it in the holes and snap, snap, snap. So let's see how it goes here. I did trial fit this a couple minutes ago. So basically just line everything up. So it's as simple as that. Once those clips are basically trial fitted, you make sure that your hole, not too big, not too small. Like I said, take a piece of metal, drill a 1/4-inch hole with one of those clips, push it in it. And also the holes you drill in the car, if the metal's really thick, like if there's a couple layers that you put the clips through, you're probably going to have to make the hole a little bit bigger because it's going to take more resistance to push it in and also more resistance to take it out. What you want to be able to do is have the hole the right size so that if you have to take it out, the hardboard or whatever behind it, when you pull it out, doesn't break, but also at the same time when you press it in, there's enough resistance on those pins to hold it in place. Like I said, I usually go, I think, a 64th up on the size of the hole from a 1/4 inch, whatever that is, and that's usually about the right size to keep the right resistance on those pins. So the door panel is in right now. The owner was over. He took a look at what we've done so far. It looks as though he now is asking us to put a piece of oak trim across the back of here. So that's been added to our plate to finish the interior. So we're going to work on that. As I said, we've got the lights there. We've got to do the doors, but we're waiting on the escutcheons, like the little metal pieces that fit on these door handles, to basically do the final fit on the wood for the doors. So as soon as we have that, we'll do that. And then, of course, work on the seat. So more to come. Today, we are working on the door panels. We still have to wait for the door straps to come in, but I can make the panels and put them on the car. So just like the other kick panels, the rear panels, it just was the same process. Make a paper pattern, cut the pattern out of the 1/8-inch arborite and fit it, relieve it. And then the camera lady made up the leather panels. One thing with leather, what we've been finding out, although we haven't worked with it much, it is almost impossible to get all of the wrinkles out. We're going to use a technique with the heat gun and maybe a little damp cloth to try and get some of it out. But for leather, it's quite happy with this. So this panel actually had to have what they call, I guess if I'm saying it right, an escutcheon, which is kind of like a little metal trim that goes around the door. We had to wait for those to come in as well. So we've got those, got that in place. It's basically a piece of metal that goes through one side, the door handle, the lever will pop out through here, and then on the back side, it's just folded over on a piece of metal. You know, everything is glued here. We've got the Ford clips all in, ready to go. I've already got one panel on the car already. In previous episodes of doing upholstery, I talked about not using glue in a can. I stood by that until my local upholsterer put me onto this stuff. It's the same product as what we were buying in a can of liquid and putting in the spray gun. He's been using it for a while. I don't know if you can actually buy it on Amazon or anything. We didn't try. But this stuff is called Helmstick 1635. If you can't get it off eBay or Amazon, try your local upholsterer. This stuff sticks like nobody's business. You get one shot to put it on, but it's really good. We still use glue all the way around, and then we staple it as well, just as a backup, because I don't want the stuff coming undone. Anyways, this panel is ready to go on the car. Join us in a couple seconds there, and I'll show you putting it on the car. So this door panel is ready to go on for the third time. One mistake I made, or one thing I didn't know, was when I made that side, I made a panel with holes into it, and I flipped it over, assuming that the passenger side was a mirror image. That may or may not be the case, or what's happened is that because these cars, we built them from seconds, maybe I had something with holes in different places. So anyways, the panel is going to fit. The panel actually slides up underneath here on the top of the car, so there's no clips across the top, but along the side there are clips. So I had to re-drill a couple holes here. Everything's ready to pop in place. Now, if it goes well, it should just go click, 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 and I'll just line them up on the bottom here. So there's one. Two. Three. And then I've got to go up from underneath here with the light. It's a little tricky to get them lined up. And, oh, that one's just ever so slightly off. Oh, not trying to get... So there it is. Made a lot of noise there. Panel's in, it's centered. There are, like I said before, there's door straps to go from here to here. So there's, even though it's a little loose here right now, those little bolts go in place and hold the door strap in place, so it's held in place there. So same thing as the other side. We've got the door handle in place there. Because the panel's got a little bit of concave to it, there's going to be a little bit of a wrinkling here, but there, like I said, there's a technique of, I think you kind of moisten it a little bit and use a hair dryer or a heat gun, which will tighten things up. But that's the second door panel. Next up, we have to start working on the seat. And then, like I said just earlier, the customer asked me to make a piece of oak trim that fits across the back here and covers this back panel. So we got a little bit ahead of ourselves here, getting pretty in deep to reupholstering the seat for the 32 Roadster. So everything is kind of all scattered here, so I'm kind of going to try and back up and describe what we've done so far. So essentially we started with, I think it's a third row seat for a minivan. It's quite popular to use on hot rods and stuff. It's the right width. So this is another one that we got from the junkyard as is. So this is kind of like what we started with. It's got a funky arm here that we've got to take off, and you may or may not want to use the headrest. In our case, we're not going to use the headrest on a 32 Roadster, but it's relatively simple to take apart. There's a few screws on here that these covers comes off, and then there's like that's one side, that's the other, the mechanisms that hold actually the two frames together. So once you take the covers off, take the mechanisms off, what you're left with is basically the upholstered top section and the upholstered bottom section. So what we've done is we've taken those apart too. I will start with the top section. So this is the frame that's under the top section. That's the arm. We have to cut this off. And over here is what the foam looks like when you take it off. So on the back, there's basically a little cover that you just lift up and it comes off. That's the way they are. And then on the back of it, there's basically these little plastic clips you pull away from the frame, and the foam and the upholstery peels off. So ultimately what we're going to do is we're going to pull this off, and it's glued to the foam, so you're going to pull it off ever so easily. You don't want to rip the foam. So we're going to do that with the back section. What we've done already for the bottom piece, we've started working on it, so I'll move this out of the way here. Hopefully that won't fall. So the camera lady has started working on the bottom section. Just going to fold this out of the way here. So we've got the foam, and we want a relatively flat look to it. We cut some of the side lumpy pieces off and kind of just leveled it. And what we just used was like a kitchen knife there. You can usually pick them up at the yard sales for like $5. Every grandmother's got one and nobody uses them. So kind of leveled this off. There's pockets here in the foam where actually the kid seat brackets used to stick up. So we're going to get some memory foam or some upholstery foam. We're going to fill those in. The next thing we're going to do, or the camera lady is doing right now, is she started making the cover for this. So she is using, or basically reverse engineering, the bottom piece. So using the piece, we'll stand back a little bit here, using the bottom piece as a pattern, she's essentially going to lay out the pieces in leather the same size as these and allowing for like the seam allowance here. Not sure if she uses a 1/4 of an inch or, yeah, she's nodding her head. Yes, she uses a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So she's going to build this cover up in leather. Then we're going to pull it over the foam and on the seat here and see how it fits. And then from there, decide whether or not we will have to put any extra foam underneath the seat before we finally fit it. So right now she's got basically the leather. She's picked a piece of leather. I think she said it was 3.5 inch. Yep, she's nodding her head. I'm right again. 3.5 inch pattern here, which kind of centers it so you get an even look across. She's going to carry on with that, and then we'll pick up the video here once we've got that, and we'll show you fitting the bottom seat cover over the foam. Another thing I just mentioned about where these holes here for the kid seat, you've got to cut those off of the frame. So on the bottom of the frame here, there were big brackets that stuck out on the originals for basically, I guess, to attach kid seats and stuff. So I just went out in the garage there earlier, I cut those off. I'm going to spray a little bit of black paint on that just to kind of tidy it up. That's how far we are now. We're going to keep on going with this. Hopefully we will show you a finished seat here shortly. Before I left the sewing room here and we just looked back on the video, I realized I didn't mention about how to remove the headrest brackets. They're right here on the top of the seat. It's like, how the heck do you get them out? It's actually really simple. Once you take the frame away, like this one, actually putting it back in might be more difficult, but oh, there it is there. Okay, so I push that back in. You basically reach underneath and you press on the bottom of this. You pop it out. It's held in just by the little bottom of the plastic on the bottom of these holes. So you can reach in, press it out, pull it out, comes out quite simply. Here we are at the end of the project. Everything is put in place right now. Kind of recap some of the stuff that we did. We put carpet into the car. We made the panels all the way around. There's 7 panels in total. The kick panel, the door, and the side. And then there's also a leather panel behind the seat. And as well, we upholstered the seat. Sorry we didn't grab any video of us actually covering the seat, but unfortunately the camera lady and I were basically working on a couple different projects all at the same time. She was busy trying to do this. I was trying to get the 32 pickup ready to go this year and also try to finish all this off at the same time. So one thing the 32 pickup has is actually the same seat. So what we're going to do is reupholster it in an upcoming episode. So we'll cover more how we put the upholstery on it. Another detail, as I mentioned, the owner requested that we put this piece of oak behind the seat. There's a tray here. Now, on an original 32 Roadster, they would have a big piece of oak or ash that went along the back here that the top nailed onto. So he kind of wanted to have the same kind of look. So what we did, we made this little piece of oak trim that we've screwed on the back here to kind of just finish the back of the car off. Another detail, I had to install the boots on the shifter and the emergency brake lever here, and just kind of tidy it up and do a few things for him. But now he's all ready to go. Basically going to do his shakedown runs with the car, and it's ready to head out. So that's the 32 upholstery project for us. Hopefully you liked it. Please like, share, tag, and subscribe. And of course, love to hear from you in the comments. Everybody take care and have a great week.